Every summer
Top 100.
Every summer
Top 100. He's got a voice that's really the bomb. He'll make a choice that'll aggravate Tom. I hate to spoil it, but when all's said and done, Merchant of Venus gonna be number one.
Every summer
Top 100.
Hello, and welcome back to the Top 100. My name is Harry, and I'm here to spotlight one of the selections from this grouping, which is number 40 through 31, Forbidden Desert. Oh, fiddlesticks.
40. Tragedy Looper.
Number 40 on the list is Tragedy Looper. This game is so unlike just about anything else out there. It's really wormed its way into my brain and makes me think like crazy. It does, however, have a very steep learning curve. There's the good players and there's one mastermind player, and the good players are trying to figure out what terrible event is going on in this particular round of the game. And the mastermind player is trying to obfuscate that information, make it difficult, and also prevent the good guys from winning. The good guys have to figure out what plot is going on and then figure out how to prevent the bad stuff in that plot from happening. And sometimes the latter is more difficult than the former. It needs to be experienced to really be explained. And you need to be taught by someone who knows the game. This is a game you don't really want to try and learn from the instruction manual. You want someone who knows what they're doing to be the mastermind, introduce you into this world, and once you know the system, there are some crazy things that go on in the later scenarios. There's 10 included in the box. There's an expansion out now that I haven't even had a chance to delve into yet. Tragedy Looper is really worth checking out. Probably the most unique game of the last year. And it's my number 40.
39. Entdecker.
Number 39 used to be my number one game as I was getting into designer board gaming and found out about Klaus Teuber's Entdecker, Exploring New Horizons. You've got a big grid and everybody's controlling one ship. On your turn you pick where that ship is going to start and you're trying to sail your way to find and discover islands. There's a few that are seeded around the board at the beginning, but you're also discovering them. There's a risk versus reward aspect to this where you decide how many tiles you're going to buy, and hopefully you'll flip up something that you can land your explorers on, and then you're settling some of those explorers, paying for those guys, or maybe paying for a fort or a settlement to be on that particular spot. And whoever has the best presence on the island is going to get the most points when that island's completed. When you're done, you've got this nice looking map, which I always love to marvel at how some islands are huge and some are tiny, and then you're battling for points in other ways as well. It's an area majority game that uses a tile flipping mechanism. I really still enjoy the way the map develops. It's certainly not one that I play nearly as often anymore. It's one of those examples of the Eurogame classics that are still hanging in there in my top 100, but it's still a great game. Entdecker, my number 39.
38. Forbidden Desert.
Number 38 is Forbidden Desert. The next one in the really nice tin from Gamewright. We talked a little bit several episodes back about Forbidden Island from Matt Leacock. This one is different from both Forbidden Island and Pandemic. The mechanisms work differently. There are some thematic similarities, but this is different enough to be its own game, standing on its own. You've got all these tiles that represent different locations. You're trying to find pieces of an airship, and you have to dig your way to get them. And meanwhile, there's a storm, a sandstorm, that is blowing sand around. This really neat mechanism that as the storm moves and slides tiles around the board, sand starts to pile up on those spaces, and you have to dig them out in order to explore underneath them. Everybody's got their own special ability, and it's a lot. That part is very similar to Forbidden Island. But this one's a little trickier, and I really love that sand shifting mechanism. This is better for adult gamers, and it doesn't feel like maybe a truncated version of a game that exists on its own. This is its own thing, and as we've discussed, I love co-ops. Comes in this nice tin as well, that's only slightly dentable. Forbidden Desert.
37. Machi Corco.
It's not Machi Corco. Machi Koro.
Machi Coro.
Number 37 is a new addition to the list, and that's Machi Koro. This is the Japanese cover. You can get it from IDW Games, and they've come out with a couple of expansions since then. This is just the base game. In Machi Koro, you've got cards that you are collecting in front of you, and they will trigger on a die roll. Each of your turns, you'll roll a die, and you may produce money. You may have to give money to other players if they're stealing stuff from you. It has a similar mechanism to Settlers of Catan, in which you're collecting based on the die roll, and other players may be collecting based on your die roll. But it's only one currency that you're collecting, money. And it plays a little faster. I think the first expansion is a must for this. It sort of opens it up and randomizes the buildings that are available at any given moment. It's still a really neat game, good to introduce to family members, easy to understand, but has that depth to explore in Machi Koro. My number 37.
46. Nah. Bus.
This is one of the few classic games that has moved up the list since the last time. This was number 57 before, number 36 now, and that's Bus. Splatterspellen's game about picking up and delivering passengers on this map. Splatter's games tend to be pretty deep, and this is no exception to that. It looks simple. You look at the box and you're like, oh, it's very cartoony artwork. The board looks like it was done by a second grader. It's got references to other games, which is kind of cute. It's tricky. It's thinky. It has a very steep learning curve. It's a worker placement game, one of the first early examples of that style of game. You have to spend at least 2 actions each turn, action cubes, doing something. But you can spend more. If you really want to push it, if you see an opportunity, you can spend 3, even 4 on a turn, but then you're not going to get to do stuff near the end. And making that decision is very tricky. You can mess with the space-time continuum and destroy the Earth in this game. It's possible. I don't recommend it. Bus is one of the great examples of pick up and deliver. If you are a fan of that genre, you should really check it out. It's worth tracking down. My number 36, Bus.
45. Quicksilver.
My number 35, Quicksilver. You can tell just by the cover how exciting it is. Okay, the cover's not very exciting, but the game is. It's about Zeppelin racing. And you are flying around trying to work your way around buoys. Depending on how you set up the course, there may be cannons firing at you. You're attacking the other players. You're trying to get in the right position, shifting your gears, because the higher gear you are, the more dice you roll, but you may have to spend cards in order to stay that high. Also, you don't want to go too fast, because if you fly off the board, it's going to take longer, or you crash into a bunch of floating landmines. That's not good either. But really, this is what does it for me. The Quicksilver mustache. The whole thing has a real Victorian sort of steampunk. It just, you have that attitude in the whole thing where you shake your fist at your opponents and say, I'll get you for that horrible thing you are doing. Ha! Ha! It's awesome. The game is great. A Zeppelin racing game is a lot of fun, and you can set up for different lengths and complexities. There's 2 sides to the main board. I'd love to see more from Quicksilver in the future. I think it's a blast, and one that's sort of been overlooked in the racing genre. Quicksilver is a great game.
34. Guildhall.
Guildhall is my number 34. This is an excellent card game. That's pretty much all there is in here, is cards and some tokens for money. And in Guildhall, you have a collection of different personalities. And each of these become more powerful the more you have in front of you. Each of these personalities comes in 5 different colors. And you're trying to collect all 5 colors of a particular personality to sort of collapse and turn it into a library. And these are the currencies that you use to buy victory points to try and win the game. You're racing to 20 VP in order to win. But as these things become more powerful, you sort of want to keep them and not use them for the libraries, because once they become a library, they're no longer giving you that power. But as they become more powerful, it becomes more difficult to use them because you need to play the color that you don't have yet. So if I have everything but purple in the banker, and the more bankers I have, the more money I'm going to get. But I need to get a purple banker in order to trigger it one last time. Juggling that and looking at what your opponents have and trying to swap with their guilds so that you can get the colors you're looking for to collapse these into a full library. And then what do you buy? The more victory points you go for in the center of the board, the less powerful the actions are on these point scoring cards. But you can go for one that's only worth a couple of points that will give you some super powerful actions that can turn the tide of the game. Fascinating game. There is a base game and one expansion of Guildhall, and I like them both. They're both standalone versions. You can pick up either, and they're both great. Guildhall, really good game.
33. Reef Encounter. Bait.
Number 33 is another one of these classic Euros that gets to stay on the list, and that's Reef Encounter. Richard Breese design, where you are, I guess you're shrimp. You're not the fish, you're the shrimp. You are trying to eat coral, to consume coral, to score points. And basically at the sort of the surface level, you've got these groups of coral, and you've got shrimp that can sort of protect the coral that they're standing on and orthogonally adjacent to. But they can't protect everything. But then you've also got this hierarchy of coral, that one type of coral may be more powerful than the other and can eat the other types of coral. And you're spending cubes to create more coral and to acquire them, and managing that economy is very difficult. And keeping your coral that you've been eating on the upper portions of that hierarchy, because the higher up on that hierarchy they are, the more points it's going to be worth at the end. It's tricky. This is, however, one game where I don't think the expansion's worth it. Reef Encounters of the Second Kind was the expansion. Adds more randomness into the game. I don't think it's a plus for this. It's a thinky Euro-style game that can be kind of nasty, but needs a little bit of that calculation, I think, to be that heavy a game. So stick to the base game. This is the original R&D Games edition. Z-Man published the reprint, the North American release. Reef Encounter is worth tracking down, and it's my number 33.
32. Perry Rodan, The Cosmic Leg.
It's not the cosmic leg.
Two-player pick-up and deliver games are kind of rare. And my number 32 is one of those rare gems, Perry Rodan, The Cosmic League. You have a sun, and you've got a bunch of planets, and then a bunch of cards that represent goods that need to go to these different planets. And the cards are two-sided, so when you deliver one of them, they'll flip over and reveal itself to where it needs to go next, which is it's kind of a neat system, neat mechanism. You also have the sun, and as you move away from the sun, you're fighting the gravity of the sun. It's harder to move away, but you can move closer, and you're moving faster. You're also outfitting your ship, adding modules, adding storage, trying to be as efficient as possible as you pick up and deliver around the board, hopefully faster than your opponent. I really like this one, and it's light, it's portable. You can take this anywhere and play with your other gaming partner in a nice two-player pick up and deliver in space, a genre I enjoy. Number 32, Perry Rodan, The Cosmic League.
41. King of Tokyo, and King of New York, and King of the United States.
I'm a rule breaker. You can't contain me, because I've got two games in the number 31 spot. They're very similar. Richard Garfield's King of Tokyo and King of New York. They are very similar. King of New York is more complex, a little bit deeper, and in many ways a little bit more refined than King of Tokyo. But you can get both and use the monsters in the two games. You can use them interchangeably, and I don't see why you don't do that. They're both fantastic push your luck dice rolling games. They use the Yahtzee mechanism that lots of people understand, except your monsters fighting over Tokyo, fighting over Manhattan, acquiring powers that make your monsters that much cooler, that much better. Great family games, both. I think if I had to choose one, I guess I'd go for King of New York because it has that extra depth. But for younger kids, I would say stick with King of Tokyo. They're very similar. They can have the same slot. It's my list. They're both fantastic. Well worth tracking down. King of New York and King of Tokyo, my joint number 31.
Oh, I'm sorry, game. Thanks for watching. I guess we'll see you next week. I might not be here, though. Eric's gonna kill me. Oh, so dented.
Every summer runners.
Top 100. He's got a voice that's really the bomb. He'll make a choice that'll aggravate Tom. I hate to spoil it, but when all's said and done, Merchant of Venus gonna be number 1.
Every summer runners.
Top 100. Yeah.